Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. I want to welcome you to the show if you've never been here before. This show, we cover all aspects of the paranormal, anything from, basically the paranormal. What it's not just scary stuff. We cover anything that's not covered in the mainstream media, if you will, usually. I'm from Canada, but we're broadcasting from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm going to give a huge shout out to Joe Montaldo, who is the owner of UPRN, and he is also our producer. He makes my job easy. I just get to talk. He also has many fantastic shows of his own on the network, so be sure to check those out. I want to remind you guys, too, if you are listening to the show, please come over to United Public Radio Network's YouTube channel. We have a live chat there, and I try and involve you in part of the show. So if there's comments, there's questions. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm so glad to have you here. A little bit about myself. I'm a Canadian psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, a spiritual teacher and mentor. My mouth doesn't want to work, and registered nurse. Now, tonight we have two fantastic guests tonight. They were very kind to have me on their show about a week and a half ago. They are very famous for a paranormal story that's been with, especially Philip, the husband of the couple, since he's been a child. We're going to talk all about that tonight, but I want to introduce Philip and Julia Siracusa. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you for
I,
having us. Yes.
I I should let people know too. You guys are paranormal investigators. Philip, you're a spiritual advisor. I saw. Julia, you're an empath and a sensitive. But again, both of you are paranormal investigators as well, right?
Yes.
Yes. I would definitely say that I'm more of like a researcher than
Hmm.
an investigator, but yeah,
Well, research, even if it's research, that's really important with the
it's basically the same.
I'm just going to head over to our channel. We usually have a few regular people that pop in with my show. We'll see. Sometimes they're a few minutes late, but hopefully you've got some people too that'll pop in. If not, just we hit almost 200 countries, and we're covered anywhere there's podcasts or talk radio. So somebody will see our show for sure. That's for sure. So you guys, and I did a bit of research, but I wanted to hear the story out of your own mouths here. How did this all start for you guys? I always ask people what happened.
Well, it's an interesting story and experience. So I guess I'll start out. Once again, my name is Phil Syracuse. I'm the author of the Horsefly Chronicles, a true life demonic haunting. Some of us have suppressed memories in life where we kind of remember things from a past life, but we're not too sure if it's from dreams or if we actually lived it. And I do remember. And again, I don't disrespect anybody's beliefs or religion, but I could tell you about my suppressed memories and my experiences and how they unfolded up until today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a person, and again, everybody has different beliefs, but I do remember a past life very briefly.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this through adolescence. In adolescence, I would go back into these dream states back in the 70s and have these remembrance of these fields, these beautiful big fields.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't really understand it at like 5, 6 years old, you know. But then a feeling would come through, an overwhelming feeling of pureness, of tranquility, of love.
Right.
And I believe, to me, that was heaven.
Okay.
And, you know, people ask me today, well, can you describe heaven? And briefly, I can. Um, there's more colors. It's a different frequency and vibration. It does exist. And it's beyond the word that we have is called perfection. And this is at a young age. This is not me saying this at 52 years old. This is saying it at 5, 6 years old that I remember this place. It was
Right.
just pureness. It was the wholeness of us. And there was a point where I remember an angelic being. So this would be towards, there's no time in heaven
Right.
or the spiritual world. So I do remember a point when an angelic being says to me these exact words: "You have to go. I will come back for you." And in a flash, a blink of an eye, I was gone. I remember opening up my spiritual eyes and seeing total blackness. I heard screams by the hundreds and hundreds of thousands. Where I was like an inside of like a volcano. It was immense. Words cannot describe how big it was, and there were thousands of levels with cubbies built into these dirt walls. And there's no English language, but I would say that we were used as pawns of slaves, and we were there to face the consequences and everything that we've done towards mankind. And the amount of pain that I would call hell, again, this is my belief, is like holding your breath, standing at 3 feet of fire, and having your body pulled apart and starts all over again. That's what I remember. And a point that I remember, and again, there's no time, but I'm going to say the word time, is that some of these slaves, like myself, were not there anymore. And that gave me restored faith and hope that I wouldn't be there. And at one point, from this inside of a look-alike volcano, I seen a pinpoint of light coming from, if I had to describe it, from hundreds of miles away. The light was so small, but so strong. And all I kept saying in my mind is, I hope it consumes me. Comfort me. And I remember this light getting closer and closer, miles away, thousands of feet away, hundreds of feet away, in description of how I could describe it, until it pulled me into this vortex of energy. When I was pulled in, I was pulled out of this tunnel, this vortex, and I remember feeling again who I was again, the person that I was. And the name came to me. My name was Cal, from a past life, Kahl. On September 16th, 1967, in Staten Island Hospital, I opened my eyes from being pulled through the tunnel, and I was born. Now, that's pretty amazing, you know. And I look back today, and if people ask me, look at me straight in the eye, and say, well, is it real? It is real. It is. I remember it. I could describe every detail. But you see, when I was pulled through and born here into the physical world, because when that angelic being said, I will come back for you, it's as if I had to redo life again in the physical world for all the mistakes that I've made in the past life. And through adolescence, I would have these nightmares. And these nightmares would turn into night tremors, where I would see these demonic looking figures in my window.
Right.
My parents in the 70s would dismiss it and say, it's just bad nightmares, go back to bed. So I don't want to argue with that. But what happened was, in the early teenage years of 13, I started to see dark shadows with my eyes, and I really couldn't make it out what it was. But I dismissed it, and I lived life. And the older I became, the stronger these attachments became that I believe came with me from what I believe is called hell in my description. Now, it's far out there. It's a far reach of belief and understanding that how could one man have these memories, and you're saying that a demonic entity or entities followed you because you were consumed and you were supposed to still be where you were. I can't explain that, but I could explain what I've been through. And the older I became, again, these attachments became strong. And it wasn't up until the age of 17, I had a friend. His mother was a psychic medium in Staten Island. She would help find the missing children with the police department. And I remember one day go to his house, and I says, I'd like to talk to you. I says, I think that there's something following me. And she goes in a closet and she takes out a Ouija board. And she tells me to sit in the living room, just me and her. And I remember going to sit in one part of the living room. She goes, no, you can't sit there. Someone's sitting there. But there was nobody there. It must have been a spirit that she was talking about. She says, don't touch the plaquette on the board. Let me do this. She goes, you ask the questions. I didn't believe in a Ouija board, quite
Right.
frankly. I asked the question, is anybody with me? And as clear as day, these people were coming through, so many of them. They were spelling, it was proper spelling that they were saying, we're here, we're with you now. And, at first I thought she was moving it. And I didn't
Right.
believe her. As a New Yorker, you don't believe anybody until you see it. So she goes, well, an uncle's coming through too. And his name is Uncle Jerry. Do you have an Uncle Jerry? And I says, yes. Did he pass away a few years ago? Yes. And she's telling me everything about him and telling me that he sees me. And that sold me on she was real. She was
Right.
actually making communication with the other side. Well, long and behold, you see, when we talk about entities, demonic entities, spiritual attachments, they're way ahead of us in the physical world. It's kind of like they're miles away and they know the road that we're going to go down. They're just waiting for us to get there. And it's how we choose our path of free will in life and the choices that we make, whether or not our faith is restored or we're pulled into the side of darkness. And I can tell you that I was pulled in to the side of darkness because after that one experience with the Ouija board, I took it upon myself to go to a place in New York City called Magical Child, which is a witchcraft store back in the 80s. And they sold all that stuff, and I wanted to have it. And I began to experiment with a Ouija board, with different potions that they would make in the store, with different types of books and rituals to test my own faith and see, is this real or is it make believe? You know, evil likes evil things and it uses us in the physical world. Sometimes we're the pawn of it. We're the ones who are the puppets and they can make us do what they want if we give them control. And that's exactly what I did. I was part of that now, and I began to do rituals that were not good towards rivals. In the early 90s, I felt like I gained this inner power, this inner strength of if you believe it, it can manifest into what you want to do, but it's not good. This was used as, unfortunately, harm. And I tried it, I've experimented with it, and it did work.
Mhm.
And I did it over and over again towards anybody who would, and again, it's wrong. It's totally wrong. I wasn't seeing the light at this point. I was saying, this is real? Is this really happening? And it was. And while it's doing this to me, and while I'm gaining the strength of doing it, I was pulled again into people asking me now that heard about what I was doing, can you do this for me? Because someone crossed me over. I
Right.
bought this book called Goetia. It was based off of King Solomon's work.
Mhm.
I don't recommend anybody getting that book because it's a very evil book that gives you the scriptures of how, unfortunately, some of these things are done towards people in the physical world. And I didn't know any better. But that's where it all started. Now I'm going to pause there and see if you have any questions.
Oh, I have tons of them. First of all, I don't find this story unbelievable. I definitely believe in past lives. In my own partner, some of the things he shared with me, obviously doesn't remember a lot from a previous life, but definitely remembers things as a baby that most people don't remember. And it was really strange. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on air. I am getting to my question, but I did want to share this. Is I remember him sharing a lot of things back when he was a small child. Like we're talking like remembering being in the Jolly Jumper. And congratulations, by the way, on the birth of your new grandchild. I forgot to tell you on your
Thank
show.
you. Thank
um,
you.
So,
Thank you.
you guys know how old a baby is in the Jolly Jumper. They can't even be walking. And he
Mhm.
remembered this. And then there were things like he was born in our city. We live in Thunder Bay, but northwestern Ontario. And but he actually moved to Toronto. His parents moved right after he was born. And he was like driving around, riding a bike at 3, being able to tell time and like at least a square mile and a half, 2 mile radius, and knowing where he was and like using power tools at 4 and 5. And his parents aren't irresponsible. Um, they obviously knew he knew how to use these. And then I remember one time he was explaining what it was like to live inside his brain. And I said, oh my God, that must be so overwhelming. And then I realized he always thought that way. But that's why I share this. He's not the only one. I've had many people tell me this, even some people that remember past lives. Now, my question for you is it's very puzzling for me to understand why you were with this angelic being. And I believe every word you've said to me. And maybe I didn't understand, but why did he say you have to leave now and I'll come back for you if you were already in heaven? It sounds like you went to hell. And I don't
Yes.
understand. Or was that ever explained to you? Because like I said, I believe every word you've shared with me. It just seems so puzzling.
Well, it was a female angelic being in the
Hmm.
fields of heaven. And she says, you have to go now. I will come back for you. And this is through mental telepathy. It's through,
Right.
not through the verbal. It's like as if we can communicate through the mind and feel the vibrations of every soul and everything in heaven. I wasn't clear on that up until later on in life when I really tried to put this together and understand that it's like, yeah, you're in such a good place. Why would you have to redo it? And I guess the soul's journey was not complete. And not that there was a mistake made of heaven saying, you're getting kicked out of here. You got to go back again. But it's as if I understood it as the journey was never complete for me because of the past life that I had lived. And just really brief, I want to talk about that.
Hmm.
And it is in my book, but before the experience of heaven. Oh, by the way, when people do get to heaven, the garden is unbelievable. And we don't actually call it heaven, it's called home.
Home. Yeah, that's
That's,
how I refer to it. Home. Yeah. Hmm.
but I do remember this was the last part of a past life. I was sitting around a campfire. I was
Hmm.
Native American.
Okay.
There were two females and a male, and it was like desert land. And I remember looking to the left, and all of a sudden there was a massive explosion, and we died. And I
Wow.
was pulled in to heaven. So I think that with the angel, again, this is just a thought process. We don't know until we go back and and really
Absolutely.
get it. But I think that because I was short-lived and I was pulled into such a good place, the soul's journey throughout the physical worlds of reincarnations was not complete. And it had to be, they say, well, why are we here? Like a near-death experience when people die and they go through the tunnel and they meet people and like, you have to go back because you're not done there. I think it's the same principle for me that I wasn't done and I had to come back and build my soul's character in this lifetime.
Can I share something with you?
Yes.
I was almost getting the feeling, like when you were speaking, that I wanted to ask what your perspective was. Because, like I said again, and I can't say it enough, I believe every word you're saying here. It almost made me feel, and it's not coming from an ego sense, but who your soul was, that you had to have that experience so that when you were born into this lifetime, like you say, part of what you do as a spiritual advisor, it sort of gave you a more holistic understanding of what, well, I'm getting goosebumps telling you that. Getting not just a home or heaven, but also what the experience was where you were in hell. I don't know if I'm being clear about that, but it's almost like it gave you a more well-rounded experience in what you're doing in this lifetime to be able to
Yes.
help people understand, if
Yeah.
Yes.
that makes.
Yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
And again,
And
not
that's
from
why I gave myself the label a few years ago, spiritual advisor, is because I talk about, and again, I questioned all this stuff to myself,
Mhm.
hallucinations, just bad dreams, oppressed memories of things that don't even exist. It wasn't up until the last 5, 6 years that I had to prove, and other people had to prove to me, no, you really went through all this, what you're
Mhm.
saying. Yeah, that is true, and that's why I'm on this journey now. I believe is, one thing I got to say that I don't want to get too far into too quick, but I will say this: through my experiences, I was able to help 3 veterans and 2 people out of committing suicide. After they heard my story on Paranormal Zone TV years ago, because of my experiences and how we still have to be here and accomplish what we have to accomplish.
That's huge because, a lot of people, just with being a nurse as well, and you work obviously with people with mental health issues and things like that, that when somebody's that driven to commit, take their own life, they're at the
Mhm.
depths of despair. But a lot of people, we're seeing a lot of this now, right now, with what's going on, a lot of people taking their lives. And we see a lot of this with, young people. But even as a medium and connecting with other people that are mediums or connecting with spirits, almost, we don't realize the finality of it sometimes, or, cutting your life short. Now, some people look at a suicide as an exit point, because I do
Mhm.
believe that we come into this lifetime by choice. We choose our
Yes,
parents, we choose our
yes,
partner, we, the whole bit. And but sometimes if we choose a really difficult life, and my other belief is, as we become an older soul, even though there is no time on the other side, I agree with you, but it's like we seem to pick more and more difficult lives, because obviously we're trying to evolve our soul and help ourselves
Mhm.
grow with the lessons that we set out for ourselves. I agree with you as well that we have free will. We can screw it all up, but again, you're probably going to come back and have to repeat it all over again. But I forget where I was going with that. Sorry, I'm thinking about, we had somebody in the chat here I'll say hello to as well, with Shannon. Shannon's here. She's actually from my city. She's usually off tonight. She's a nurse too. I know where I was going, but with suicide especially, I find that, and again, it could be wrong, and I have to agree with you wholeheartedly that I don't believe any of us will ever have the true, complete answers until we transition back home or heaven, where, however you want to call it, whatever
Yeah.
somebody's belief system is. But I've seen it explained before that sometimes a suicide is, the way we're going to exit, or sometimes people will plan that, like you said, near death experiences. I've studied those for almost 40 years. I believe I've had one as a toddler. And then, you hear that you have to come back. It's not your time yet. Some people report that they're given the choice. You can stay if you wish. But some people are told you need to come back. So with suicide, I don't think that people understand the finality of it all. Even you'll get spirits that'll come through that did commit suicide and are so sorry that they had, like I said. So that's a beautiful thing that you were able to help people, realize, basically, and obviously change your mind and not take their own life, which is a beautiful thing. So thank you, because that's three lives. You said three?
no, 5 lives.
I apologize, 5 lives that you saved, essentially. So I think that that's where I was going with that's what I was picking up when you were sharing that part of the story, um, that that was almost like necessary to bring into this lifetime, because yeah, you're going to use it to help other people. No, you had said too that you got into some of the darker arts, if you will, and used it against other people. Now, there's probably going to be people listening that are going to
Mhm.
ask, well, why is it not a good thing? Why is it, the Goetia? Why should we not pick up the Goetia? Why should we not, if we have that kind of power and we're able to do it, use it against others? I know the answer, but for our listeners, from your perspective.
Well, every act of evil that we do here, some people call it karma, some people call it the universal law.
Mhm.
I can tell you that for every action, there's a reaction. And if you put out negativity towards the earth or mankind, it comes back to you in a way
Threefold.
where it's going to get you. And I was empowered. I mean, whether I should say that on the air or not, I'm saying it because there's lessons here that I had to learn.
And plus, you were really young.
I was young.
Very young.
I at one point in my life.
I always say that because you need to always
Well,
express
yeah,
that.
you have to go through
Young,
trials
like in teenage years.
and tribulations to realize that this is real. This can hurt people. I mean, there was a point where I became a bouncer in the 1990s, and the bar was owned by the mafia. And if you work for any kind of family, they have to know everything about you, everything. And I got myself in pretty deep in conversations with these people. Now, this is one instance that did happen. They were looking for somebody, quite frankly, that I ran across years prior and I didn't like. He was a bad person, a guy who killed an FBI officer, a guy who, if he was caught by the Secret Service or FBI, he would take down a certain family. And we gave it a try. I says, I think I have communication with the board and this book that I've been using. And, they look at me and laugh, but they go, we'll give it a shot. Um, and that night, this spirit came through that was whacked by another family.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave up this guy's information in Brooklyn and told these people exactly where he is.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of days later, they gunned him down on the streets.
Wow.
And I started to get scared at that point. I started to realize this is real, Philip. I need to wake up. This is real, and this is not good. And you know what I learned? I learned that the way I'm talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
just because you can't see a spirit doesn't mean they're not listening and they're
That's
not going to communicate, because they will.
Mhm.
Except for I was communicating with evil things, not good things. And they wanted that. They
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
wanted these
Mhm.
evil acts to take place.
Mhm.
And it became almost an every week ritual where I would take Matchbox cars, make them crash, and think of the people who were in those cars. And it's not good, but it did happen sometimes. And I had to pull myself out of it. Evil pulls you down a dark tunnel. You know how it works? The devil says, for example, I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to give you the power to do these things. I'm not going to tell you what you have to pay me back till the time is right.
Mhm.
I'll empower you. I will give you all this. And I remember I was getting bribed by so many people, get my boyfriend back, get my ex-girlfriend back. And it became crazy where I had to say, I don't know how to do this anymore. And I had to stop completely because it was pure evil. In the year, and this is how this whole thing unfolded, how trickery and deception and the prince of lies came into my life. You see, in the mid 90s, I was with my two sisters and a friend, and we were doing the Ouija board. And this girl came on the board, and she says, "My name is Sarah." And we says, "Well, if you're a girl named Sarah, prove to us that you're here." So she told us things that were going on in different parts of the home, my family's home I was living in. And we didn't believe it till we went upstairs, downstairs, and what she said was happening. And she says, not only that, she goes, there's a rock holding your mom's muffler down in the driveway from the red Hyundai. Go outside and take a look. So we all go outside, and the muffler's being held down by this big rock that was picked up. Now I started to
Wow.
realize this girl, Sarah, is real. And she goes, I want you to know something. I'm here till you cross back, and I'm not leaving. Now, I have chills
Me
because you
too.
see, this
Mhm.
girl presented herself as a young girl that died, white dress, no older than 13 years old, with the white complexion, black hair. She gave me the description of who she was and that she was murdered. Well, as we get on with the story of the Horsefly
Oh my God, I
Chronicles,
have the chills really
you're going to
bad.
find out exactly who she was.
So weird.
Suspect
I'm going
now.
to stop there again.
Something like that, you'd know right away, right? But when we enter into this being very naive, right? And you guys
Yes.
said you were teenagers, so she was young, but around your age, right?
Well,
No, I was at that age. I was 22 years old, and she presented herself as no older than 13 through the mental image of what she would look like.
Yeah. But we know now, right, when we see especially young children or young spirits usually, so got to be a little bit suspicious sometimes, right?
Yes,
well,
most definitely. You don't
yes, we
know
know that
who you're
now.
talking to, and we
No,
didn't
that's I said
know.
we know. That's I said we know now.
Well, yeah, it took us a very long time to understand what this was.
We have
So,
a question for you, but go ahead and then I'll remember to answer it when we have a little break in the
so as the
story.
years went on, 94, 95, 96, I was just living a normal life, opened up a fitness center, stopped doing rituals, and it wasn't up until 1998 I decided to do the Ouija board once again and test the waters of my own faith. And she came through like as if she watches me every single day, this girl, because she knows everything. And she told me,
Okay, goosebumps.
you're going to meet the person that will be with you
Mm-hmm.
in your life. I stopped playing the board. And I took it through a mental thing that she's saying that I'm about to meet somebody who's going to be my companion.
Mm-hmm.
In 1999, in a club in Staten Island packed with over 1,000 people, I remember a voice in my ear, not my mind. That's her. I got pushed in the back. The girl spills her drink, and it's my wife today.
I can't.
Wow. So you guys have had some crazy stuff happen. I thought actually we just have a few comments. I'm going to say hi to a few people in the chat too. So we've got Zach Mann here. He's a regular supporter. So is Shannon that was here early as well. Um, we've got somebody new, Joshua Benjamin. I thought it was the question. Oh, actually it is. Have you ever researched what astrological, numerological, and palmistry markers indicate empaths or what they have in common based off of your own off of your own, I guess your numbers, I guess is what they're saying. You might have to be a little bit more specific here. They said,
I don't even understand what that means.
I'm not sure. Okay, okay. So you go, I'm not either. It goes, every psychic gift is the palmistry, they're saying. Then they added, the psychic has a gift, not the tool used. Many people use tarot, pendulums, and Ouija boards, but never ever get reliable answers or experience anything witchy. Well, I don't think we're really talking about witches here. Might have just popped in maybe a little bit later in the conversation, Joshua. But Philip, who is speaking, this is Philip and Julia Siracusa, and they're sharing their story with the paranormal. And Philip was describing basically since before he was born and how we're getting it. This is quite a story, so we're just kind of getting to certain parts of it. But I do want to add, sorry about that, because I'm not quite sure unless they can maybe re-clarify how what they're asking, because I don't quite get it either. So Zach Mann says negative spirits will pose as innocent beings to deceive the living. Hence why I stopped using spirit boards / Ouija boards many years ago.
Very true.
Yeah, Shannon says she's still here listening intently. So I'll wait to see if Joshua maybe can rephrase that a little bit, because again, I'm not quite sure. I know he was started off as a question asking about what astrological, numerological, and palmistry markers indicate empaths. I guess he's asking. I don't know if I can even answer that I don't know. Was
Yeah,
there
I
anything?
can't answer
Listen, if
that.
you can't answer that, we can't answer.
Yeah, and I be very honest. Oh, he said to have a paranormal experience, you normally have to be gifted. That I don't always agree with either.
Mm,
What you guys, your thoughts? Because I don't. I mean, we've had an experience when I was on your show. You were finding a lot of similarities between our experience.
Oh,
to
yes.
be a paranormal investigator, you have to be gifted.
No, he said to have an experience.
Have an experience.
I
Well,
don't.
I think you would have to act as a lighthouse
Yes.
to have an
Yeah.
experience, some kind of open communication to the other side, whether you're willingly knowing or not knowing. If you're a lighthouse, then there's that possibility that things can come through.
It's interesting you call it a lighthouse because the way spirit has shown it to me, and I've said it many times on this show, but everything is energy. The power of our thoughts,
Yes.
our words, and our emotions are the most powerful things out there. But
Yes.
I've said to people, and I was one of them in the beginning too, what's the name of my spirit guides? Well, you know what? They don't use names on the other side. Philip, you could probably vouch for this because everything's telepathic. Everything is recognized by energy, even though I love the way you described it, but the way they showed it to me across the veil, if you will, everything on that side is just little pinpricks of light. But those that are sensitive or those that are aware of their gifts, it's like a bonfire. So it's very easy for anybody on the other side to find you. But there's also, I've explained to many people, it's not just the good that can see you. There's many, many negative, evil things as well that can see you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But I believe that it's interesting to use the word lighthouse because I like that. I actually like that term.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And once they know, and that's just the way I would put it, is we're an open doorway to them. And
Yeah, once they
once that
know.
door is open,
Mhm.
and as I get further into the story, then my wife starts with her part. You're gonna see that it's a door that's hard to close, very hard to close
Yeah.
in the
Can
spiritual
you
world.
ever close it though? Because, you know, we talked a little bit about this on your show. And I believe that once, especially something negative, knows you, knows your name, they never forget. Like we're not having the activity that we had in the other home, but we're still having activity. I mean, I think it's with you. I don't know. I could be wrong, but anybody I know that's had an experience, it usually starts out very young and they seem to experience stuff throughout their whole lifetime. Now, is it because they're sensitive? And whether they're, you know, they're clairs for people, whether they're clairvoyant, clairaudient, you know, you can hear or see for those that may not understand what clair means in the audience. But you just seem to always experience it. I think if you're really aware of your gifts, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think that you definitely can block these gifts out.
Yes,
So,
yes, because you have
and
that part of your story.
that's what happened with me. I mean, you know, when you're traumatized to, especially as a child, you can block them out and you don't even know you're doing it. So,
It's hard. It's not easy because as if you're traumatized or
it's
we
not
call it
easy.
post-traumatic stress disorder through
Mhm.
vibration of negative energy that sticks with us throughout our life. That how do you block something like that out? It's very difficult. There's times we can shut it down, but is it always around?
Yeah,
Yeah.
My
I
oldest
agree.
son, actually, both my sons are very gifted. My second youngest has, even with severe autism, is very, very gifted. And
Mhm.
my eldest actually blocked or shut down, if you will, his gift. And that's, I've had that conversation many times with him saying, well, as much as you may think that you've shut it down or blocked it, and always supported him, obviously, but it's always there, right? There's always things you may
Yes.
know or sense or feel. And
Yeah.
again, actually, Joshua did phrase his question. He said the palmistry mark called the Mystic Cross is upon every psychic. And he said his question is if you have researched your own psychic gifts marked in your astrology, numerology, and palmistry. Everyone has a gift, not everyone, all of them. So even maybe like I'm guessing maybe even like a birth chart or something. I think this is what they're asking.
I never did that
I've
personally.
never done it either, but have you, Julia?
No.
Mm-mm. I have a
But
friend
thanks for
that
the, but
That's a
I
great question,
yeah, it's a
though.
good question. I might actually look into that now.
Yes, thank you. That is a great
well, they
question.
got a little. I actually got ahead of their. And it is a great question, Joshua. Thank you, because he actually added. I got ahead when I first started reading. He said the palmistry mark called the Mystic Cross is upon every psychic. Its shape indicates what number life path you are. That's what I was talking about. My friend from New York that was on here, Lois T. Martin. She was on a couple of weeks ago, and she was actually talking about life paths and where you are. She was actually really interesting and was teaching people how to figure it out on air. But anyways, he says it indicates what number your life path you are, and then you put an x equals 1.5, a square 22. I'm not quite sure. We're just getting a little bit complicated here with the numbers, but the comments are here. So like I said, or you guys said you're interested, so you can read it because he's broken it down into quite a few numbers. I think to figure it out. I'll be really honest with you, Joshua. I think we all have different gifts in life. Whether somebody's a naturally born athlete or maybe a mathematician, or, it could be anything in life. We all have special gifts. So with something when you're quite complicated like this, and I'm never going to profess myself with what I do to know everything or know how to do it well, I would probably go to somebody that knows how to do this very well and let them figure it out. I don't know, what's your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Definitely.
Let's get further into this story. This is a great story, you guys. I'm sorry that you've gone through it, being very sympathetic, going through some of the things you've gone through, but it's a
Sure.
fascinating story nonetheless.
So, 1999, once again,
Met Heather.
I met my wife, and from that point on, we started a relationship, and I put all the bad stuff behind me. Um, all the practices of rituals and things, and I just left it.
I didn't really know too much about it. I didn't
You just
know
read my mind because
much
I was
about.
just thinking, did you
I
think
didn't know
about
much
this or
about
what did you?
his. I didn't know much about his past at all. I mean, I had my own thing that I was going through, that I went through as a child, but I didn't know any of this really until actually kind of like the book came out. I mean, I knew things, and I knew that we both had gifts, and I just didn't. That was a time in my life where I was completely tuned out to it.
Mhm.
I was just completely blocked. I really didn't know too much.
Because
So as
how
time
do you
went
have
on,
a conversation? Sorry, I got a bit of a delay, Philip. I apologize. I was just going to say quickly, how do you have that conversation, anyways? Right, like in the beginning, if you're dating.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Philip.
so as time went on, the relationship enveloped, and we got an apartment together, and we decided to one night have my sister over and my wife's friend, and and again, these are the lessons I teach people, how to be careful.
Mhm.
Um, we ordered Chinese food
Remember.
that my sister paid for, and I hope she's not listening to the show because she'll want her money back.
Ah.
That's only 21 years ago. So we my sister and her and my wife's friends like, hey, let's do the Ouija board. Now, one of the dumbest mistakes that I've made in my entire life, and I don't make it no more. Well, I had a suitcase, and in this
Wait,
suitcase,
I have to say, that's the only thing that I did remember, was that he had a suitcase. And
in the suitcase was everything I bought from Magical Child, the witchcraft store in New York City. Every potion, every incense, every herb, the Ouija board that was handmade, and the book of Koisha. And I had to have it. It was like I didn't use it, but I had to have it. It was like I couldn't let it go. It was like the suppression thing. Like I needed to have it wherever I went. Not like if I went to a store, but if I lived somewhere else, it had to
right,
be with
you had to
me.
move it wherever you went.
And I remember they're like, "Oh, let's do the Ouija board. We hear that you could do crazy things." And I said no at first. And here's the mistake. I fell into the trap, and we took out the board. I took out the book. We did the board. Nothing was happening. I read passageways through the book with intent. You see, let me get something out there. A book is a book. A board is a board. It's nothing, right? It's material, but it's the intent and belief that we have behind what we're using,
Yes.
like a cross, a medallion, I think for a safety net that makes it work here in the physical world. And my belief was so strong that you couldn't break it because I knew that it worked, because I utilized these tools years ago.
Right.
And all of a sudden, about 20 minutes in, the apartment gets very cold, and everyone's getting off-centered and unfriendly with each other. And I remember they wanted to leave. My sister and her friend, they wanted to leave. It was about an hour in now. Everybody was feeling uncomfortable. It was as if something bad was there, but we couldn't really figure it out. It was like the heat was turned off, but it wasn't. It was ice cold in that apartment. And things went downhill. Things spiraled downhill. And my wife and I broke up. And she wasn't my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but we split up. And here's where the story is going to get fascinating. We despised each other out of nowhere. We didn't want to live.
We talked about this on air before.
Well, we didn't, but I want people to see how this works and how you got to be careful. It was very vicious terms that we broke up on. And I moved back home with my parents. She moved back home with her parents. And something in my mind was telling me this was all set up and you fell into this. And it was bothering me, right? It was really bothering me because I couldn't understand how two people who really cared about each other could just hate each other over nothing. But you see, nothing can manifest into something. So in the year of 2000, starting in April, it was my mission to contact almost every psychic medium between the state of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I went on this crazy mission to find out what went wrong. And I will tell you this, not that I had a lot of belief and understanding about psychic abilities of what these people could actually capture in the grand scope of this thought process of telling me what my reality would be. I remember going to Perth Amboy, New Jersey, and sitting down with this lady, and ironically, here's where we go with this now. Her name was Sarah. We're in the waiting room, and she was this old lady, and she goes, "Come in, my child." She calls me her child, and my sister was with me, and I go into this room. She pulls the curtain back, and just me and her in this 10 by 10 room, very, very uncomfortable. I'm nervous. And she says, "Look at me. What have you done?" And I said, "What? What do you mean?" She goes, "You unleashed something so evil. It's right behind you. It's showing me as this black mass." And I explained to her, I told her, I revealed everything I did from the past. She goes, "You brought it upon yourself. And that's why everything is going bad in your life. And you have to get rid of that book." I left there frozen, puzzled, not understanding. And it wasn't up until a couple of days later that I went to another psychic in Staten Island. And her name was Sarah.
Wow.
Again, this was a very elderly person, very well known. And ironically, they both have the same name. We're in the waiting room, and I said, "I will pay you any amount of money to be honest and tell me what's going on and why I feel like I'm being watched." And she says to me, "I don't want your money. You're in trouble." She says, "You have to get rid of whatever's with you, and it's not good." She goes, it won't show me its clear image. It's as if it's changing shape and form behind you. You will
Wow.
not see it, but I can see it. I was like, what do I do? I once again told her everything. She says, I want you to get the book of Koisha, put it in a brown paper bag,
Mhm.
go into a cemetery, dig a very deep hole, and bury it.
Mhm.
After you do that, I want you to go home, go to sleep, and put yourself into a dream. When you wake up, all this will be forgotten. So I didn't do that. Instead, I decided to call all the psychic hotlines. Latoya Jackson hotline. I was literally spending thousands a week on psychics. And I will tell you this, that 70 out of 100% of these psychics seen my future for what it is today. They did. But I wasn't believing it. And I recorded all these sessions. I recorded them so I could understand it. I still have these tapes. It wasn't up until June of 2000. I was with a friend. I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to get the book. Come with me. And we're going to bury this book. And I found a place, a cemetery. I bury the book. And I did what she said. I went home. I went to sleep. The next day, an image came to my mind. It says, I want you to write this letter. After you write this letter, I want you to physically bring it to Julia's place of work and hand it to her in her hand. Now, we're broken up for 3 months. We actually don't like each other. We haven't seen or talked to each other, but I did it. I followed what I was told to do. And remember when I handed you that letter?
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
My friends will like throw it out.
What did you think when you read it?
I was just like, what? I was in shock. And then I just went, I read it right away.
After she read the letter, she beeped me because back in the day it was the beepers, not the cell phones.
But that's how old we are, yes.
And
I'm older.
we talked and we met in Staten Island. And you know what we said when we met? What happened? Because it was as if a dark shield was put between us that was now pulled away like the psychic said it would be. And I'll pause it there and take questions.
Well, let me go through here. We still had like quite a bit of explanation. Just mostly people I know are just sitting on the edge of their seats here because a couple people put that in the comments.
Story.
Zach put many, backing up a bit. He said many great stories start with Chinese food. He said mine included.
I like that.
Yeah. No, Zach's always got these witty comments he usually puts in here. He said, Julia and Phil, both of you don't look a day over 40. That's from Zach.
Oh, thank you. We'll take that.
I'll take it. I feel like I'm 90.
Yeah, I hear you. So, yeah, like I said, I'm going to have to go over these comments that Joshua left here. Oh, Shannon said, oh, Julia, did you keep the letter? She just asked that.
You know, I don't have the letter. That's, I wish I did have it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good question. I was never asked that question.
No?
I did not keep the letter.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
You know they're listening because they're typing questions.
We've moved so many times that I can't even imagine. All the things that I've lost in moves are just crazy.
Well, when we left our home last year, I lost practically everything. I just spent actually the last probably 6 or 7 hours last night and tonight looking for something, and I know it's here. I think because we've got what we have going on is little things disappearing again. You know where they are, and they're not there, and then they'll show up after you give up. Probably.
Yeah, I wish I did. I wish I knew where that letter was. Very good question. What about
Actually,
that?
Joshua, he just wants. I think he's got an experience. He said, "My experience with hauntings is that it's usually a living psychic. It's usually a living psychic haunting people, the dead. I don't know what he's writing here. Haunting the dead. I think he's saying that remain, that don't have much energy to do anything beyond nightmares. The living psychic can whip up a ghost. Oh, this sounds like quite the interesting person we have here. No, and I think that's what we're talking about in here, is that these aren't things that you should be messing with, really. And I can speak from that experience. And I mean, every word that Phil and Julia are sharing here is absolutely true. And we came from completely different stories about how it happened and why or what, but it's not something you want to mess with or just whip up a spirit. Because I'm going to be honest with you, and I've always said this too, I don't care how sensitive you are, and even clairvoyantly, a spirit can change its appearance at will. And I say, we're just one human being. If you've got something that's older than time, especially evil, there's many that can mask their energy appearance in front of you. If the more they're around you, it's like they're wearing a mask, and eventually you would figure it out. But like I said, you can't always be I don't think you can be guaranteed 100% to know what you're speaking with or what you're dealing with.
That's really true. I've been asked this question before. If if you have gifts, and maybe someone can answer it for me. If you have gifts, how do you not know if you're being tricked?
Well, for me, what it is, and I'm glad you asked, I think that's a really good question. In the beginning, okay, because one of the first things my friend Seraphine, her name, I call her Sarah, that we do our show tomorrow night, and we're complete opposites. She actually collects haunted items. She's a paranormal researcher. And I always say I come more from the light worker, and we meet in the middle. And she really taught me a good question I ask most people now is, how does it make you feel? So being really honest with yourself, how does it make you feel? A lot of things physically your body may react to that I find that, our mind may talk us out of. I always say trust your animals if you have any pets around you, because they don't have
Yeah.
any agenda. They just live in the here and now. And I think they're the epitome of, you know, absolute love. Small children too. I always tell people, you've got small children and they're telling you they got an imaginary friend or they see something, find out more about that. Find out who they're seeing, what, how, where. And I also think if it's something that's around you or it's around you for a while, I don't think they can hold it up forever, that eventually you're going to see, or it's going to slip, or they'll start, especially if it's something negative and they want something from you.
Yeah.
I really believe something positive is not going to ask you for something. They're there maybe to guide you. You can almost feel that love. And like I say, I really trust physically how I feel when I'm around something. But can I say as a human being that we're 100% infallible to know exactly everything, even if you're gifted? I don't think so. No,
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's my thoughts. Well,
I agree.
oh, go ahead. Oh, we
No.
got Shadow Designs here too. She
Good.
said, I checked recently and it wasn't an immediate knowing. And I know that she has abilities as well. So it happens to all of us. We're human, and I'm not making excuses for it. I've actually said on this show many times that if you meet a psychic or anybody really in life that guarantees you 100% results, absolutely no, beyond a shadow of a doubt, run. We're human. We're never ever going. Psychics can be wrong. Mediums can be wrong. Actually, there's a site I follow. It was one of the first sites I found when I was researching all this. It used to be like a 12 to 18-hour day researching, trying to find out about this stuff, why this was happening. And it's called Channeling Eric. I don't know if you've heard of it before, the Lisa Medhus before.
No.
Interesting, because she's a doctor and had 5 kids, and her was raised atheist. Her parents were doctors, and the children were not raised with any beliefs. And Eric committed suicide.
Oh,
And
wow.
what happened was he had really bad Tourette's, and he had really, really untreatable bipolar disease, and committed suicide. And what it started happening was Eric started appearing to members of the family. And the biggest convincer for her was her father, who was this very sort of cold, unemotional. I think he was a surgeon. Not that surgeons are cold and unemotional, But he called her. He lived overseas, and he said, I think I'm going crazy. And she said, well, what do you mean? And he said, I just had Eric appear to me like he would have been about 4 years old, sit on my lap and kiss me on the cheek and say, I love you, Papa. So
Wow.
she started researching. She thought there has to be something to this. Like she said, he had the stinkiest socks, and like all of a sudden that smell would appear, or he used to smoke pot. Like they knew there were signs that they would know that it was Eric. And she ended up always paying out of her own pocket, but getting some really great psychics that are mediums, sorry, and they would have conversations with Eric. And anyways, this is the site that I went to when I first started this, and it gave me a lot of insights into the afterlife. Now, is it 100% infallible? No, it's not. But the reason I bring this up is the first medium that she used, Jamie Butler, she's now off on her own. She's in Atlanta, and she has her own channel. And she trans channels her two guides. One of them, who appears as a 6-year-old little girl, Maitland, and she's actually been able to get the birth certificate of Maitland. She was about 9 years old when she died. She was born in Chicago, and all this stuff that she's channeled, again, because she found this birth certificate before, maybe, but she's pretty good when you see her. Anyways, she's also got another guide, this old English lady named Grace, and she goes into a trance and channels them. But Grace was talking about this because I've seen this before as a medium. Somebody that shows up that is still alive in a mediumship reading, and she explained as Grace what happens with that. And so there's something right there, right? You're a medium, you're doing a reading, and your spouse shows up. Your spouse is still alive. Your spouse is at work. Why is your spouse showing up? And she gave the example of there was somebody that had come to Jamie for a reading, and she was having a really difficult time for something. And her wife actually showed up, and she knew her wife was at work and was giving her all this information, all this advice. Actually, if you believe, it gets kind of complicated, but from her higher self. And so when this woman shared it with her spouse afterwards, she goes, well, no, I wasn't there. I don't think I was there. She says, but that's exactly what I would have said. So she was explaining that. So there's so much phenomena that goes on that, again, I don't think we're ever going to know it all until we return back home, as I call it. I don't know. What's your thoughts, you guys?
I agree.
I always say that. I said we're not going to know every single little thing until that day comes when we cross over. But I agree.
I have to. So, like I said, there's just a little bit of chit chat in here about negative energies and things like that. So, this story has me on the edge. That's why I didn't do too much research. I wanted to hear it right straight from you guys. I did a bit, but I wanted to hear the whole story from you guys.
So we got back together. It's as if the black veil was pulled, and we both said to each other what happened. And after that, we built a life together. 2001, 2002. Now we're living in a nice home that we're renting, and life is good. I'm working full time and not into anything bad, no organized crime, no rituals, nothing. And we had our first son, and then our second son, and then we moved to New Jersey, and then I opened up a fitness center and a tanning salon, and life was really, really rocking at that point, right?
Yes.
And
we had a third son.
Yeah, and then this is what happened. I opened up a fitness center in Metuchen, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. This is significant and why I bring it up. One of my members, I just want to say this little phrase. The devil knows what you're going to do before you do it, and he knows how to play, once again, us as the pawn and those around us as pawns. And here we go. This lady joins my gym. She looked, she was very mysterious looking, dark eyes, black hair, olive complexion. At the time, she had to be in her early 30s. And during one of the training sessions, I was a physical trainer. She says, I want to talk to you. And now, once again, my life was forgotten, my past, and nothing was brought up ever into the fitness center. She says, there's something that you need to know. I see things around you. And I played it off like she's crazy because she goes, but I want you to do something for me. She goes, my friend has a hair salon around the corner from your shop. Would you come here Saturday afternoon coming up so I can talk to you? I was like, about what? She goes, I just want to see something about you. And I was like, look, you're a client of mine. But I agreed. She talked me into it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday comes around. I close my shop. I go around to the hair salon and she's waiting for me. And there's other people. They're cutting hair and all that. She brings me to a back room. She asked me to lay down on, it looked like some kind of a doctor's bench, for example. So I lay down, put my legs up, and she goes, just give me a chance. Now, I don't remember exactly what word she used, but she starts, for some strange reason, speaking very, very fast and into a language I don't understand, like tongues. Like today I understand they call it tongues, and very fast, very loud, and very decimal, where it's ear passing to me. And I was like, stop, stop, stop. And then she goes, just one more minute, please. And she's doing it again. I felt myself, with no exaggeration to my experience, levitating slowly off this bench. And I felt like I had no control over my body. The next thing I remember, she's screaming from the top of her lungs. All the other workers from the hair salon run into that room. Then they all run out into the street. Now I wake myself out of whatever they did to me. I get out of there and I leave, thinking that everybody's nuts. I'm even nuts for doing this. It's so stupid.
Right.
The following week, she comes to my place and she goes, I want to cancel my membership with you. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. So I asked her, and she says that I have to cancel and separate ties from anything you do. She canceled her membership with the fitness club. A month later, she commits suicide.
Oh.
What I felt when I got the news, I felt, but no one telling me, that this thing is back. Whatever was before is again. And I had a hard time with that because I wasn't really understanding it. I didn't want to talk to no more psychics. I didn't want to talk to anybody about this because part of me is like, it's a coincidence. This is a lady who may be self-medicated, and this is an excuse. But then I says to myself, well, how could I have the experience of what she did to me and how she was speaking through these words that I don't understand, and what I was feeling? Does it all have to do with the one being named Sarah who followed me? Or is it just a make-believe thought process? Time went on. I dropped it out of my memory as best as I could. And my wife and I, once again, we're continuing with life. We had our next child. And we decided to move and buy a house in the state of Pennsylvania. We purchased an old Victorian home built 1918, right?
Yeah, something like that. So
And we first moved into the home and everything was nice. It was a nice home,
Mhm.
It was just a nice home. And we left that life behind, And then we had another child and we're raising a
4.
family. And then life was doing good once again.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, within the 3-year period of living in this old Victorian home, not that it was haunted, but sometimes thought I would see shadows and capture pictures of what we would think of as orbs. Some people say it's dust particles. Who knows, right? Water vapors. But they just turned up the most different, odd times in the hallways or right above carpets, like floating.
Mhm.
2009, we moved to another home. I rented that home out, and we were doing good. We were moving up in life. Now we got a really big home that we're renting. We were going to buy it. In the year of 2009, between my wife, myself, and my family, we had not one paranormal experience. Not a blink of a bulb, not a flash, not a shadow. Life was perfect. It was a storybook life. The guy with a good job, supporting a family, having everything. Only to find out that the money we were paying the landlord was pocketing until the sheriff came to the home. And we realized that this house is going to be on the sheriff's sale because he was in a way backstabbing us and just keeping his money. So we went on a mission to buy a home. So it was in 2010 we went on a mission. And now here's where the Horsefly Chronicles story kicks in.
Okay.
Sometimes we think we choose the house, but in this case, the house chose us.
Yep.
We went looking at several different homes. The home that we're living in now was online. I had contacted the real estate agency. They said it was under contract with another family, but they were more than happy to show us other properties. As the month went on, we looked at other homes, and one home that we did kind of like was owned by a priest, but it was a really nice looking home, right?
Yeah, I really liked it.
It was a peaceful home. The only reason why we didn't buy it is because it has steep stairs that were very hot. I don't like the stairs for the children or myself. But I'm in work in New Jersey. We can't find a home. My wife calls me one morning and says, guess what? That home that you looked at, it's not under contract anymore. And then the bell went off in my mind, like, really?
And I went to see it first.
And you went to see it first. And what was your thoughts?
I was drawn. And that's what he's trying to say. It's like the house chooses you. I mean, I was just drawn to this house in a way that I've never been drawn to anything like that in my entire life. And it wasn't, I mean, it's a beautiful home, but it was something else. Now I know that, but then I was just like, oh my God, this is such a beautiful house. But I was drawn to it. I called you and I'm like, you have got to see this house. And actually this house was smaller than the house that we were living in.
Right.
Way small, but there was just something about this house. And
yeah, so the real estate, we made an appointment, and I remember she's taking us a walk through the backyard. I felt this wind coming, just out of nowhere. But again, wind is wind. Then we went into the home, and we're walking around. She's doing room to room, showing us the home. And we go into the basement, which I fell in love with because it was a finished basement. So in my mind, it was I could make the pool table and all that stuff, and just what I wanted. But then there was this one room in the basement, and we went into it. It was painted pure red, very odd. And in the room,
same color as this.
Yeah, was this weird exercise machine. So you and the real estate person left the room.
Yeah, we were walking around.
I was in the room by myself as if something was talking to my mind. And I felt my equilibrium balance going off, like I was like going to pass out or something. And I really didn't understand it because I was so excited about this home and possibly purchasing it that I kind of like dismissed it. And I left the room within my mind, like there's something weird about it. And then we signed papers, and in June 2010, we moved in to what we thought was our dream home in an estate neighborhood in Eastern Pennsylvania. We thought. Now, the first 6 months of living here, absolutely nothing happened. I was working for a cable company in New Jersey, long commutes, good money. The family was just doing their thing. Kids were going to school.
I just had, my youngest son was 2 weeks old. We moved in here when he was 2 weeks old.
Wow.
So,
and it was my oldest son at the time. His name was Brandon, who said that. He's like, Dad, I have to tell you something. There's toys going off by themselves in the basement. And the last thing I wanted to hear after making a large investment and everything's going really good is toys going off by themselves. And I says, no.
It brought you back too. We did not want to hear any of that.
I says, no, it's probably batteries or whatever, or flashes of, maybe you're turning on the light and the light activated. I didn't want to hear it. So what was happening is, as we're living here, the 7th month on, there's a lot of negative energy starting to build up in the home. And when I describe negative energy, it's like a lot of fighting between the family, tension, and very eerie, like something's not right here. Something's just not right in this home. And I remember going to work to coworkers saying, they said, well, maybe it's like this feng shui where the house is off-centered.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I never heard of it. Maybe it's a possibility. The house is just built different than it should be built. But that wasn't the case. As time progressed, we really started to think there was something pure evil here that we've never experienced before coming from that room. Now, my son developed a sickness in that room called pancreatitis.
When he was 11.
I know what
11-year-olds don't get that.
No.
It's
No.
very rare.
And it's agonizing. You're so sick with that. I'm so sorry he went through that.
And something in my mind told me, get him out of this room. And we made a new room from upstairs in the home. And then about 6 months later, he started to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Then I just felt like it was that something was not right with his bedroom. No one went in it, right?
No.
For a long time.
No. Mm-hmm.
No one went in it. And it wasn't up until the year of 2013, I contacted a paranormal team that I seen on television. They were locals, the next state over. And I wanted to see what their thoughts were. Hopefully they're just saying it's in your mind. It's an imagination. It's bad lighting. And when they came here with a group of like 7, 8 people. And they brought all this equipment, which I had no clue what it was. They rigged the whole home, the backyard, the front yard, every single bedroom. I remember one of their psychics getting very, very ill, going on my front lawn, throwing up, and I walked by and her eyes looked black.
Wow.
Like pure black. And I'm like, huh? I wasn't getting it. And the evidence showed what they captured was a red orb and this demonic looking figure embedded into the wall in that room that we called the portal. We gave it that name.
Yeah.
The figure is on my Facebook. It could be a possible illusion of matrixing to the eye of what it really is, or it could be actually what it is what it is, what it looks like. So what this paranormal team decided to do was get the recorders at the previous time, and what they caught were growls, regular tape recorders. We're not talking about different sounds coming from paranormal equipment. We're talking about a digital recorder that the only thing it's going to pick up is you talking or something else talking or whatever it is. And you heard growls. Now, once again, with their psychic getting very ill and with the picture, I think that they unleashed uncharted territories.
Okay. Because I'm going to go with number 2. I don't think it was probably matrixing. Never mind the growls that they picked up. So you believe that, did things get worse after they were there?
Most definitely. So what I decided to do was not believe a word they said, and I contacted another paranormal team because that's just how I am. And I contacted another paranormal team a month later. They came on a Saturday, and that was even worse because one of the ladies got a scratch and she was bleeding on the ankle as she's walking through saying prayers in between the hallway and the dining room. I thought she bumped into something, quite frankly. But then the other part of the
remind me of Dell. I'm sorry to stop you there, but Dell's the same way. Like,
he was very hard to convince.
Been through.
He was very hard to convince. He had to. How many teams did you have?
Well, we had that team, and they came out with this red orb in pictures once again, and she told me, you need to get out of the house. leave the home, just get out. And
That didn't go over very well.
there's no way I was going to do that. I wasn't going to lose all that money and put myself into an apartment with my family over some stupidity of a belief that we're actually being threatened by demonic forces. I wasn't going to do it. I was like, it has to break me completely. That's because of the thick mindset I got.
You didn't say that out loud, did you? I hope you didn't.
Yeah, he did.
Well, I know I did.
Oh, said it out loud.
So as time went on, we contacted other paranormal teams, anywhere from Brian Cano to very well-known psychic mediums from around the world, the UK. I wanted proof that Philip Siracusa and his family were being haunted and tormented by demonic forces of the unnatural. And is it real or is it psychosomatic? I will say that today, living the life that we've lived and the experiences that we've went through and some of the tragedies that unfortunately happened, it is real and it does exist. And it took me a long way to believe that and understand. Again, I was a person, I didn't know what paranormal equipment was. I wasn't too clear on how this stuff even works. I debunked it with my own thoughts, but only to find out that most of it does really work. I just wasn't really comprehending it because I was blocked by deception of the Prince of Lies, that what was here was good.
And I want to say something. You know, when you're living in a house like this, you will tend to get blocked after a while, right? After a while, you're seeing things, but you're not. It's so weird how this works. After a while, you get blocked.
See, now what happened with me? No, and again, I think it's because we're all different, right? Because I was going to say, I bet you probably knew Julia long before he did that there was stuff in the house, right?
See this. I did, but at that point when we moved into this house, I had a past of my own growing up in a haunted house in Staten Island, being tormented by the man that died there. I had blocked myself, and I did not want nothing to do with it. So while he had all these investigators here, I was upstairs with my baby. I did not want nothing to do with anything. And then slowly, I just start with all this going on, as you know, I started opening up again.
See, that's what happened with me. Like, people ask me, well, when did you discover that you were a psychic medium? I've always been one. Once you start thinking back, like my first experience was as a 4-year-old. And then I shared this on your show. I don't know if I've ever shared this on this, but every year or every night, I was 8 years old, and this was a different house than when I had my first experience in our previous home. This was freshly built. This house, it was brand new. We were the first owners, and it was from the time the snow melted until it fell again. So it was almost 5 months, 6 months. I'd wake up every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, blue, unable to breathe. A couple times there was no 911. My father would be scooping me up, throwing me in the car. By the time he got away from the house, I was breathing. They diagnosed me with asthma. I can tell you right now, being a nurse, it was not asthma. And I didn't even want to go to sleep as a child. So, it was always around me. And my dad's mother was, I know I told this story on your show. She knew the minute her third eldest son had died. So it does run on my dad's side. But as I started, learning about this and researching, they said it was a full-time job. I started realizing, holy cow, that these are some of the things I can do. I mean, and this has been happening my whole life. I just never put a label to it. And so my gifts actually sort of blossomed and grew. But I actually stopped. I was doing angel cards at the time, and I had a certification from Doreen Virtue. She no longer does this stuff. She's actually gotten quite religious. I don't know if you follow her or not, but so I had always been drawn to this kind of stuff. And somebody had told me very early on, don't touch your cards, don't do anything with any of this stuff. But there were you'd understand stuff, like you'd hear stuff. And then I realize now that Dell is very clairvoyant. He can see spirit. And my eldest son, they're not related. It's a stepdad. They would tell me, no word of a lie, within about a 24-hour period of each other, hadn't even spoken to each other. My son might have been at his dad's house or something, come home. Word for word, they tell me the exactly same thing they'd see, whether it was in the house or it was on the front lawn or whatever. So you knew. I remember Dell, again, being the consummate psychic or skeptic, like you, Philip, would say, you must have told them. You must have told them on the phone, or no. So how did two people see the same thing that's going on there, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, Julia, for yourself, and that's unfortunate what happened to you. So you were very capable of seeing a spirit when you were younger, you said.
Yes.
And then the previous, was it with your grandfather? You said, I think I was reading about you
Yes.
that.
I mean, I had a house that was haunted by the man that owned it before my parents bought it. And he was an awful man in life, and he was an awful man in death. And that's what they say, right? And he was terrible. And I remember that. And then he would, from age 5 to about age 12, I was just tormented by him. And I would never say anything because I just thought I was crazy. I didn't know what to say. And then and then when I was 12 years old, my grandfather had passed. And then he came to me in a dream and he told me that man's never going to bother you again. He never did. I never saw him again for face value. I never saw his image again the way I was for so many years. But I knew he was there because I would overhear my mother talking to my siblings about him. And I would just walk away and not ever really talk about him that much. In fact, when I met Phil, he came to the house. At this point, I was just completely blocked from everything. He's like, there's a man standing in your kitchen with a hat. And I was just like, I did not even want to hear about it. And I think he talked to my mom about it more than me because I didn't even recognize it, to be honest. Remember that?
Yep.
I got 2 questions for you. One of them is, what were your children experiencing in this home? And then the second one, how did you guys get the name the Horsefly Chronicles?
Well, our children are all lighthouses. So they were all experiencing
surprise, look at their parents.
Surprise. Every single one of them had their own stories. In fact, when we moved in here, my youngest son was 2 weeks old. So when he was about maybe like 3 years or 4 years old, someone or something smacked him in the face.
Aww.
And I just went ballistic.
Yep.
So ever since that day, he was sleeping with us. So he was sleeping with us for years and years and years and years. And we were old and tired. I was just like, at that point, I was like, let him sleep in here.
Yeah, we had I had psychics sleep in that room, and they left that room because they felt like things were crawling up the walls.
That was his bedroom.
And not that I believed it, but they said there's things in this room that no one should be in this room. It's one of the.
That happened with my eldest. When we moved into the house, he was 15 months old. And when he could start to talk, he kept saying, red eyes in my closet, mommy. And then you know how you always check on your kids at bedtime, right? When you're going to bed. And he used to have one of those bunk beds in the room he used to be in when we were in the old house. And it's up on stilts, right? And then there's a desk underneath. 4 or 5 times a week, we'd find him laying on his back. He was about 3 or 4 in a pool of vomit. Never knew he did. I was terrified he was going to choke. You'd have to get him to bed, get him all cleaned up, and he had no idea what had happened. And then it started probably about 4 or 5. He couldn't sleep in that room either. This is almost identical to us. Nobody slept in that room. That room was empty. He had a futon beside our mattress beside our bed. Same thing. You're tired. It's like, I can't argue with you, kid. Just go to bed.
Exactly. Oh, that's so sad. But that's how it was with us. I mean, we were just so tired. It was our 4th child, and we were just like, sleep with us. go just
Yeah, we didn't want to deal with
just
that.
let me sleep. But
But the kids were affected
they were
by
all
toys going
affected.
off, the light bulbs flashing on and off. Who would hear voices? Who would hear someone talking to them through
Yeah.
their video
Lights.
games, through the Xbox? There were things that they said that not supposed to happen. All those different things. So I had a psychic medium live in the house for like 3-4 months.
Mhm.
And I wanted solid proof once again in the year of 2015. I believe that you have to live in the case to see how the family wakes up, goes to sleep, what they're experiencing, the different energy shifts within the home to see and validate what's exactly going on here.
Right.
Well, here's the other twist to this, okay? And again, and I guess I am the messenger for people because you got to be careful with negative thoughts and how you could be pulled in to things that you should not be doing in this world. There was a man that I was referred to who came down to my home, a man who believed in worship in the devil and demons. He came down here because he wanted to see if what we were talking about and the claims that were made were true. And he went into that room in the basement. Now, this is a man who worships these evil things, and
So tell them why you wanted him there.
I wanted to see if he can validate what or tell us what we're dealing with. He started to get very, very tense in that room in the basement, very agitated, sweating, and wanted to start fighting everybody in the house. He's like, "Get me out of here because I'm going to explode." And we got him out of the room, and he's like, "What you're dealing with here is a combustion of energy that has the power to destroy things around from one person to the next, as each person can be utilized to destroy the next guy. And it's not. This is the acts of evil. This is pure evil in its form, and you're dealing with this."
Yeah.
He goes, "This is something that we don't know." He doesn't believe it's ever going to go away. Well, what I didn't know is this: there was a setup. As he's telling me all this, he happens to had to bring out that book that he brought to my home, the book of Goetia.
I didn't know any of this.
And him and the psychic that was on this case felt like I had the intentional power to make things happen with this book, and maybe I could help him against someone he didn't like. And I turned it down. And I was like, this was a test for Philip Siracusa. So this was a test of saying, did you learn your lesson, Philip? Or are you going to fall into the dark waters once again in your life? And I did not fall into those waters. I let it go. I refused to touch that book. In 2015 of May, we had a ministry come to the home. They spent the entire day here, blessing the home with all different people of faiths of Wiccan, shaman, priest, reverend, but they felt like they had to use every religion, every belief to get rid of this force in my home. And I agree because it made sense to me. They spent the entire day, and I remember they says, well, now you have to get an exorcism as well because you're part of this problem. And I was in the basement, and the priest is reading these things from the Bible. I'm not a Bible person.
I'm not.
And all of a sudden, I felt something from my stomach pull up slowly. It was in the pit of my stomach pulling up. And it brought back that levitation feeling that I had years prior with that lady. And all of a sudden, I feel like I'm gagging, can't breathe, and I'm not me no more. I am not me. I'm something else. I'm something evil. And I'm saying things that I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know the words I'm saying. I remember them with the holy water on me and the words, and they're holding me down. And it was a battle that went on for like a half an hour, and then I felt relieved. I felt like it let go. It was gone. They felt it was gone. We broke bread after that at a family dinner, all of us with the ministry. We were thankful in our hearts, my children, my wife. Sunday came around. My kids were playing with their toys in the living room. We had tears in our eyes. We won the battle. We won. Monday came around. I have a separate office in the basement. 8 o'clock that evening, I went downstairs. I seen a dark shadow. I dismissed it. The toy went off on the floor about a foot away from me. I says, maybe I kicked into it. At the exact time, my kids are screaming on the third floor. The lights are going on and off, on and off. At the same exact time, coincidentally, the toy is going off by itself, and the dark shadow is now manifesting into pure blackness. I cast it on my wall. I felt we lost that at that time. We lost the battle. It was back. You could feel it. You know, when people say, well, how do you know that? It's because you feel it in your heart. You lost. It's over. This thing came back full force, worse than what it was. It was just playing games with the ministry and us. Mm-hmm. We contacted them, and we decided to get a priest from the Catholic Church alone in my house in the year of 2017, as we're living with all these acts of evilness within the home. And again, my walls don't bleed, my pitches don't fly. That doesn't happen here. What does happen in this house, what did happen is it's parlor tricks. Parlor tricks are, I put my keys here, but now they're gone.
Yeah.
My car doesn't start, but it did start. Mm-hmm. I have to go somewhere, but I don't remember where I'm going. Mm-hmm. Why are these acts of delusional processes happening within the mind of myself and others within the family? When the priest was here, absolutely nothing happened. He blessed every single room with every prayer from the Holy Bible. He says nothing is here. 3 hours later, the shadows appeared back within the home as if they were playing hide and seek behind the walls. Mm-hmm. 2 months later, we contacted a deacon, a reverend, once again to re-bless the home. And they did. I remember the reverend going into the basement and they're feeling this oppression of energy where they can't breathe. And then it went away, and then they continued on, only for a day or two later for shadows to appear. Now, when I say shadows appearing, it's the mist, it's the corner of the eye. It's I thought I seen something, but I didn't. It's the feeling of static discharge, as if it just finished raining outside with a lightning storm and you're walking through that discharged energy. That's what it feels like without the deep fog feeling within the walls of the home. Well, in 2018, this person from the TV show Paranormal Challenged, he questioned the beliefs of what we were dealing with, and we've had so many people from religions coming here that he wanted to see for himself. He came here with his team, and this one lady that was with him stayed alone in my living room. And I will never forget this. And what I'm about to tell you may be unbelievable, but the outcome, you'll hear it. So he's downstairs with me, my wife, a couple of friends of the family, and they're using their paranormal equipment. And he left her alone to try to communicate what might be here. Mm-hmm. On home surveillance,
yeah,
she disappears for 12 minutes. She's gone.
Yeah.
And then reappears. Now, I did not know this up until a couple days later, till I checked the home footage. But what was actually happening was we were all being played, every one of us, because he started in the basement to get mad and demanding orders to everybody.
He was mad the whole time.
He started changing. I contacted him a month later. I had to tell him what I found on footage is this girl disappeared and reappeared, and I'd never seen that before. Now, again, cameras can have a glitch. I definitely agree with that. Power could be somehow manipulated. He says, I don't want to talk about that person that came to the home. And I felt something bad happen. I find out on the news, I'm going to be very careful with my words, that she was murdered, that there was some kind of a confrontation between him and her that accidentally happened. But the mysterious part of that is they're on my Facebook Live saying how they were visited the night before by this evil-looking entity in their apartment in Easton, Pennsylvania.
Because they live here too.
He, these are some of the things where I'm like, well, she's gone, she reappears, and now she's really gone. Was it, again, there's coincidences, and I'm going to say that straight out. Was it an act of, I'm going to bring you in, meaning an evil being, and I'm going to take care of you my way for not believing that I exist and show you my powers? Or was it a coincidence that they got into a fight and there was an accident and she died?
Didn't he?
So
he believed that. What did he tell you?
He told me that whatever, we met at a diner, and he told me that whatever visited both of them was the outcome of her demise, in simple terms. Now,
it's not unbelievable. Go ahead, Philip. Sorry.
So, again, there are coincidences. Back last July, we had Dan Rivera on my show, who was part of NESPR, the Annabelle doll, with Plato and
the whole team.
The whole team. And we talked to them and we asked them to come down to the Horsefly Chronicles home, because what better team that's ran by Tony Spiro, who they have all these experiences, the Conjuring, the Amityville Horror, the Annabelle. Let's see if they could help us. So I remember when they came down and I'm being questioned, they wanted to do a one-on-one interview with me alone in the house. And they did that, and they recorded me. And as they're recording me, I started to feel like I was changing sometimes into this evil talking, this evil tonality that was coming out of me. And then as I'm transitioning into the whole experience of my life, and then all of a sudden Dan says, I figured this whole thing out for you, Phil. We got it. He goes, we're going to come back this evening. Just don't do anything. We're coming back. They came back in the evening. We're in the basement. They brought some equipment. And, the equipment's going off a little bit. They're going into that room that we call the portal. And now we're outside of that room, and he's using a digital recorder. And he asked me to ask certain questions. And he goes, Philip, I want you to ask this question because this is the answer to your whole problem. He says, Phil, ask the question, Sarah, who are you really? With the intentional thought, I got chills too, asked the question slowly, methodically, Sarah, who are you? When they played back the digital recorder, it said, fuck you, in a male's evil voice. And we all felt it. At that point, we knew this was it. We found the culprit behind every act of evilness throughout the entire years, who's portraying to be different people as a young girl, from the mid-90s to the Black Shadows, to the shape-shifting forces, to the malevolence of all types of evil and thoughts of people around wanting to kill themselves and the psychic's eyes turning black, and these mysterious car accidents as the horsefly throughout years started to circle and counterclockwise people after leaving the home and myself in New Jersey going to work. This was the one thing, the one culprit that affected everybody. We went up into the dining room right after that. Dan Rivera, Jimmy Vitale, Jimmy Patino, I'm sorry, Eric Vitale, we were all talking, and all of a sudden, as Dan is talking a little bit about the religion and the words that we should be using through acts of God, every single light within the dining room, kitchen, and living room went so bright you had to almost dim your eyes, and then it was gone. And he says, it's over now.
And here's the thing, Phil, for all these years, Phil really had to believe it, because you know this, if you don't believe it, it's not going to work. So he had to really believe in his heart that the problem all these years for him and then for our family has been this one entity who he called Sarah.
You guys, I hate to do this to you. We are almost out of time, but
Really?
what I love, I know it went by so quick. You know what I want to ask you though? Would you come back? Because I have a million questions. I know people in the chat too. Everybody's I've been getting messages through Messenger.
Wow.
People are just loving this. Would you guys come back again?
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yes.
I'd love to have you back because I got a gazillion questions.
I have to write down where we ended.
Your story is so compelling, but I still want to, we've got about a minute left. I'd still love you to tell people, where can they find you? Where can they buy your book, Phil? Where can they see your podcast and anything else you got coming up?
So Philip Siracusa page on Facebook. We have Horsefly Chronicles Radio where we interview different people. And I have the books out on Amazon, the Horsefly Chronicles from Birth and the Curse of the Horsefly Chronicles, with the names of Sean Austin, Melissa Leeper, Scott Gerhardt, Jeff Leeper, all the people within the paranormal community who came to the home and what they've experienced through the years of trials and tribulation of these acts of evilness. And that's called The Curse, once again, of the Horsefly Chronicles. But we definitely have a lot more to say, and we'd love to do a sequel to the show.
I would love to. I'm going to talk to you guys it'll probably be tomorrow, but I'm hoping to have you back next month if we can, because I got the rest of this month booked, but I'd love to have you back because I want to continue the story. I knew there was lots more to it. So I want to thank. Yes,
definitely. And thank you for having us on tonight.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody who's watching, listening. And I would like to end off like this. Love and pureness and hope supersedes any existence of negative thoughts. Keep it in your heart and your soul and your mind, and put yourself in a higher vibration. Till next time.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. You guys have been fantastic. You are quite I don't want to say storytellers because this is true, but the way that you've shared the story, like I'm sitting getting closer and closer to the camera watching, because that's why I didn't want to research too much. I was familiar a little bit with your story and I did some research, but I wanted to hear it from the two of you. I'm getting goosebumps now. So I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody in the chat. Oh, I'm just listening. Oh, actually, I'm trying to read our producer's putting something in the chat. Just let me see. Laura, Shannon says, Laura, text Joe and tell him the next show needs to be late because they want you to keep talking.
Aww.
You guys, I'm going to have them back. I promise, as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Janet says, I don't think I was breathing the whole time while she was listening. And she's usually working tonight. I know that. So she was here tonight. I'm glad to have her. We had Joshua. I have another friend that texted me while it kept coming across the screen. They're saying, oh my God, I'm loving this. Great guest. Fantastic show. Everybody loved it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us on.
Well, like I said, there's so much more to this story. I mean,
we will continue it right from here.
yeah, you needed to lay down the groundwork and let people know like what's behind this, because there's a lot involved with it.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
I do want to remind everybody, I will be back tomorrow night with my PIC, your partner in crime, Seraphine Hurley, with Tripping the Void. We will be here from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time, or 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know what we're talking about yet. Whatever comes up, with our shows, like we always say, we go around the world and back again. So we will see you then. I want to wish you all a wonderful evening, morning, or afternoon, wherever you may be. And I send you all so much love and light. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you tomorrow night. And again, Phil and Julia, thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone. Thank
You
you.
have a great night
Night.
too.